Welcome back, everybody. Passionate Pasta again. So our dough is well rested. Um, Now let's start making some pasta. Okay. What shape do we want to make today? Well, I was thinking the classic orrechiette, right? Little ear. It's a fan favorite. People seem to love it. So let's have some fun. So what I'll do is I'll go over the process of making the pasta, and then I'll just kind of talk about, my journey a little bit, okay? So, here we go. What you're going to do is going to roll the dough out into a semi-thick noodle, about, thickness of a pencil is really usually a good one to kind of gauge this. So, once you roll it out, I usually turn it this way because it's easier. All right. Get yourself a knife. Now you're only going to want to cut about the thickness of your pointer finger. Okay. So you got that little dough there. Okay. You're going to take the sharp end of the knife. You're going to take it, flatten it, and drag it back. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of tear the inside. So it's going to rip those gluten fibers. What that is going to do is when you boil that and then you put it in your sauce, it's going to help thicken your sauce. All right? So there's another step involved in this pasta shape. So you're going to take it and you're going to flip it over on your finger like that. So it's going to create this little orrechiette. Alright, so we'll put that one right there for a second just so you can see. Alright, once again, cut, drag, flip it right over the finger. Orrechiette. So, how I started off in this business was I was a high school student graduating, and I didn't know what I really wanted to do with my life. I was actually a junior at the time, and I was flipping out on what I wanted to do with my life. And so one day I was in culinary class, and my dad, who's a really hard person to please when it comes to cooking, I had brought home like a stir fry. I'll never forget it. And my dad ate it on me. I was not happy about that. But he told me that that was really good. And for me, getting a compliment like that from my father really meant everything to me. And so maybe I figured cooking was an option. And as I progressed through my senior year, I became more and more obsessed with the lifestyle. I felt like, being a chef was pretty cool. And so I started going down this little rabbit hole of wanting to cook. So flash forward a little bit. I graduate. Culinary is the way I want to go. And I go to community college because I am not from a rich household at all. My family does not have a lot of money. And so I figured, why not go to Gateway, get a good education, and then if this is really what I want to do, I'll transfer up to Johnson and Wales. So I begin culinary, find out that I actually do have some kind of talent in cooking. I'm not burning stuff, which is kind of key when it comes to cooking. And I also enjoy it. So I begin washing dishes for this company in Wallingford. and I meet a chef, and she says, you know, you want to come work for me? And so I say, yes, I would love to. It was the first culinary job I ever held, and it was also a very quick reality check into this life. Fortunately and unfortunately, it was a very verbally abusive environment. You learn very quickly the toxicity that can be in the kitchen. I'm not saying that every job was like that. You know, there were plenty of jobs that I worked in that it was a very fast-paced environment. It was very hard, but it was a very good time to be in the kitchen. You know, you become more like a family. And unfortunately, this was the first job that I had, and it did not end that way. Actually, it was the very first job I had ever been fired from. So that was a reality check, and it was a gut check, and it was a very painful learning lesson that I, you know, walked away from. And I learned that really quickly, that maybe, you know, you learn doubt very quickly. At the time when I was working there, I was going to the gym still, I was working out, I had a lot of fun, and this kind of threw my life through a meat grinder. It was very painful for me to know that I had failed. It hurt me deeply because I felt like I had let my parents down, that, you know, life, that I was a failure. And so I gave up going to the gym, and I started dedicating myself to my career because I couldn't allow myself to have another failure like that. Unfortunately, you can tell yourself that, but the reality is that it will happen more than once in your life. And, you know, I was very fortunate. You know, I got my second job working in a hotel restaurant, and it was a much better experience. I worked with some very talented people there, and I fell in love with cooking again. I started feeling confident in myself again. And then, just like anything else, you know, my life switches up on me again. I had graduated Gateway. I go to Johnson & Wales because I really was dedicated to this now. And I left for school. So, you know, I kept on uplifting my life and moving. Another thing is that there was no such thing as balance. Working this life is, I will never take away the things that I've learned in the life. I will never take away the experiences I had. But I would say that it's a life that has to be fully committed to. And it was very hard for me to kind of balance that because I'm a very social person. So being stuck inside four walls all day long, sometimes 14, 16, you know, I think the longest shift I ever pulled was a 21-hour shift one time. That's very mentally draining. And so, you know, depression starts to kick in. And being in this industry, there is a lot of people that do suffer from depression, alcoholism, drug abuse. It's not a glorified lifestyle like TV has shown it to be. Anybody that has worked in kitchens will tell you that, you know, it sucks sometimes. You know, holidays are not a thing. You don't get to see your family during the holidays. You are cooking for other people who are with their families during the holidays. So that is also very difficult. You know, all you can hear is the stories of how wonderful Christmas was with the family and how you wish you were there, and then you lose that ability to connect. And as time goes on, you become more toxic yourself, which I didn't realize was happening to me at the time. I realize that now I was indoctrinating myself in a lifestyle that took pride in working 100 hours a week, no days off. I was in a life that made you feel guilty for taking a day off for yourself. And that, to me, I feel like is wrong now. At the time, I was totally drinking the Kool-Aid, as they would call it, and realizing that I was only hurting myself down the line from what I was taking away from this life. You know, pretty soon it went from being about cooking to basically surviving, and you don't know any other way. It's kind of, you know, like, sadly, being in an abusive relationship, or like any abusive relationship. You know, you don't know what to do outside of what you are experiencing, and it becomes like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So when I finally got out of that life, I had been volunteering on my days off at a farm, and I realized that working on a farm was very liberating, and yet I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, because this industry I had been in for 12 years at this point, you know, it's a very big, scary jump. And it's kind of funny, a friend of mine one day in the restaurant industry basically said how much he hated making pasta, and so he told me, you're going to make pasta. And this is about 9 years into the industry at this point. So I was in it for 12 total, but it was about the 9-year mark that I had first actually started touching pasta. Okay. And at this point, I'm already well indoctrinated. All we know is being basically the island of misfit toys, working 14 hours a day, smelling like onions and sweat and grease, and basically 5 to 6 days a week getting killed on the line. And so I went from that to making pasta, and at this point I'm already doing a lot of like butchering work. I was the assistant pastry chef at this place, and I realized, you know, I was like, well, what difference does it make? I'll just make pasta, right? Who cares? I'm just going to help my buddy out. And little did I know that this was the thing I've been waiting for the most in my life. And I didn't realize it up until he let me make pasta, and I rolled it out, and I'm really kind of enjoying this. I said to myself, I could do this every day for the rest of my life, 6 to 7 days a week, 10 hours a day if I had to, and go to sleep happy. And so what I did was I would go home after my smelly 14-hour day, make a pasta dough, go to bed, work my next 14-hour day, come home, and I would start looking at different shapes and different pasta books. Shout out to Flour and Water and to Mastering Pasta by Mark Vetri. Those were the books that really kind of set me down this road. And so I kind of would just make different pasta shapes and teach myself different pasta shapes. Same way I'm doing it right now. I didn't have a YouTube video or a video up, but I did have myself, my pasta dough, and my books, and I would teach myself by looking at these pasta books and watching other YouTube videos, and really kind of gaining a little bit more knowledge. And I realized I was becoming obsessed with this. And it was at that point that, I had other friends that said, have you thought about starting a pasta business? And I will tell you right now, there's a lot of things that scared me in my life, but starting my own business was possibly the most terrifying thing I've ever done. And I realized that not only is it the most terrifying thing that I've ever done, it's the most beautiful, it's the most rewarding. Pasta saved my life. It did. It helped me out a lot. At times when I had self-doubt and I was having, night terrors and lack of sleep and energy and purpose, this kind of came along and took a lot of that pain away. Pasta has allowed me to really look inside myself and realize I have a lot more worth that I didn't give myself credit for. Now I know, looking at me, being heavy and stuff like that, that's just one part of it. I think, I'm going to work on myself and try and get better in that area as well. But I also feel that mentally up here and in here, I have fixed a lot of the damage that I was doing to myself over the years of being in the culinary field. And pasta really has given me such a beautiful outlet to kind of continue, fixing myself. Not that I'm, self-destructive or anything like that. I just, it's hard to have confidence when you're used to being beaten down. And I know not everybody has shared that issue in the field, but I have worked in places that really did me feel lower than dirt. And pasta makes me feel worthwhile. So I felt like I owed it to myself. I felt like I owed it to the grandmothers in Italy. I felt I owed it to my future, and most of all, my happiness. I feel so much happier that I made this decision. I feel a lot more liberated. I feel that this is a journey that, even though I've been doing it for close to 9 years, that it's just beginning. It allows me to look into the deeper meaning of life and to find love, which, love for myself and love for others, and forgiveness, forgiving myself for the years that I had tortured myself. And so, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that the restaurant industry is the worst industry in the world. It is a tough life. And if you love cooking and you love that life, by all means go for it. Just be careful of the trap of what TV shows, what reality TV shows, a movie show. Do it from here. Don't lose that. And when you do lose that, that's when you really need to kind of say, is it time for me to find something new? Or do I need to refocus and find something, find another meaning to be here? Don't let it consume you. Don't let it take away your happiness. Don't let that happen. Like I said, when I initially started these videos, or started this video, I want this to help people, and pasta has helped me significantly with that. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe it's tying balloon animals or something and making kids smile, making baked cookies and stuff like that. These are the things that could make someone happy. What I'm saying is that find your happiness, make it happen. And it's never too late to start. I started over again at 32, 32 when I started the business. I'm 38 now. But I started over, and I'm thankful every day for that. And as you can see, we're kind of rolling along with our little orrechiette here, and I got about 50 of them, 60 of them on the table, and I'm having fun. I feel like I'm just kind of chatting with some people, but I do want you to know that life doesn't have to be tough both at work and at home. And maybe life isn't tough at home, but it also doesn't have to be tough at work. Money, this, money, that. And I realized the true meaning of happiness was what I do here with pasta, what my pasta does for others, and what my family is to me. I lost a lot of time with them when I was in the chef field, and it's time I'll never get back, and that's painful too. But I try to make sure that the time that I have now with them is more meaningful. So if if you find the video helpful, please feel free to make a comment, send me a message, whatever. But I really hope that you find your happiness, because you deserve it. So until next time, have a wonderful day.